We'll call the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee meeting to order, please. May we have the roll call?
Dr. Bofi. Present. Dr. Bofi is present. Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Davis is present. Ms. Edmonston.
Present.
Ms. Edmonston is present. Mr. Garvey. Here. Mr. Garvey is present. Ms. Holloway.
Present.
Ms. Holloway is present. Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones is present.
Present.
Ms. Lewis.
She's not far.
Mr. Rock.
Present.
Mr. Rock is present. Dr. Thomason.
Present.
Dr. Thomason is present. Ms. Voce.
Here.
Ms. Voce is present.
Forum.
May we have the first item, please?
Please note that a revised packet has been distributed and that the executive recommendation and backup items for items 2.2 and 2.3 have been revised. There is an additional revision to the documents for 2.3. Items 2.1, 2.4, 2.5, and 2.6 remain unchanged. Your consent agenda is ready, adding item 2.1.
A motion to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Rock, have a second. Ms. Bofi. Dr. Bofi, excuse me. Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item, please.
Your first item is on page 3, item 2.2, consideration of a status report on types 2, 4, and 5 charter schools. Revised documentation has been distributed. The department recommendation is to receive.
Do I have a motion?
I second.
Who motion? Mr. Dr. Bofi and
I second.
Dr. Thomas.
Did we get something for 2.2? Did we get an extra handout for 2.2?
2.2. Think about 2.3.
I know.
No, not a new one, but the packet that you received this morning was new from what you received last week.
Okay.
All right, do we have any cards or anybody that wishes to speak on 2.2? Do you want to speak? No. Okay. All right, we have one card that would like to provide information only, and that's from Mrs. Caroline Romer. Would you come to the table, please? She waved. All right. Any other question or discussion by board members? Any objection to the motion? Motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 17, item 2.3, consideration of a report on the student enrollment percentages of at-risk students and students with disabilities for all public schools statewide. Revised documentation has been distributed along with the packet you received this morning. You did receive an update just a little while ago. It's marked. It says SIT 2.3 at the top. Revised documentation has been distributed. The department recommendation is to receive.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to defer this until maybe March 29th, whatever our next meeting is. This report, I know it's a report that is to be done yearly and presented. It was supposed to be in January. I received a call from staff asking me if I was all right with delaying this until the March meeting. I said sure, because they were assimilating the data. We received this document of 165 pages this morning, and then an amendment to it, or a clarification, I guess, just 5 minutes ago when we sat down. And I'd like to really have a discussion about it, and I don't think I'm prepared, and I would like to be able to, have the department staff explain some of this to us. So I would
Let me clarify.
like to do it when we have more time after we've looked at it.
All right. Let me clarify for the board. Ms. Voce's motion is to defer receiving this and to place it on the agenda for the special call meeting on March the 29th. Do I have a second? Second. Is there any objection to her motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item. Hearing that, then retract what I just said. Go back to all of the above. before we start calling these, the motion before the board is to, since we just received this report this morning, is to defer consideration of this report to the special call meeting on the 29th. In light of that, is there any reason that those folks would want to speak today, or would you rather wait to speak on the 29th, since we're not really going to discuss it? You can't hear me? Okay, let me see if I can. What we're asking, we have a motion before the board, and probably no objection to it, since that's what was a minute ago, that we will defer this item to March the 29th. Okay, and we will take it up at the special call meeting on March the 29th, because we have not had an opportunity to digest the report that was received this morning. In light of that, there are some cards here of folks that wanted to speak and wanted to be recorded in either in favor or opposition. What we're suggesting is all of those cards, we would ask you to defer that till that item comes before the board on March the 29th. Is there any objection to that from any of the people in the audience? Okay, all right. Let's do it this way. I'll just call the names and ask if you want to waive. Pam Carey? Is Miss Carey here? You waive? Great. Is that Ashley McReynolds? Wave. Chase Brissett? Wave. Thank you. Terry Coombs? Wave. Thank you. Karen Artis? Wave. Brittany Barnett? Wave. Tucker Barnett? Wave. All right. Thank you. Now the other folks there just wanted to provide information if necessary. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Here's another one that wishes to speak. Sarah Vandergriff? Wave. April Dunn? She's going to speak? Okay. If you would, Ms. Dunn, just have a seat, and I'll finish this, and then I'll let you speak. Sean, I know Sean, you're waving now? Okay. Melissa Brossett, you're going to come to the table? All right. And Melinda Elliott. Wave. Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am, you can start. 3 minutes.
Hello, members of the board and John White. I want to thank Ms. Dora Pavone for putting out this motion to get input from the DD Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, thank you. Melissa Brostat. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Boucher for making this recommendation for delayment. Thank you.
Thank you. And the previous speaker, I don't think she said her name was April Dunn. Thank you. All right. So we have a motion before the board to defer. We have a second to that motion. Is there any objection to the motion? Motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 152, item 2.4, consideration of a report on types 2, 4, and 5 charter contracts and requests for amendments. The department recommendation is to approve the material amendments to Impact Charter Academy and Lycée Français of New Orleans.
Have a motion? Kira Orange Jones, y'all had me worried there for a minute. Do I have a second? Second. I'll leave a second. We have some cards to speak on that. All right. As I call your name, please come to the table, and while you're coming, I'll read the names of the folks that do not wish to speak or express an opinion on the issue. Karen Artis, Melissa Brandt, Sean Fleming, April Dunn, and Keith Bertman. If y'all would come to the table, and then, okay, the following people are opposed to the recommendation but do not wish to speak. Melinda Elliott, Ashley McReynolds, Chase Brossette, Pam Carey, Terry Coombs, Tucker Barnett, Melissa Brossette, and Brittany Barnett. Thank you. All right, who's going to start the process here? You are, Mr. Fleming? All right, please state your name and go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Sean Fleming with Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. I want to be clear, our objection has nothing to do with French immersion programs or the school specifically, but it has to do with the report you just passed on and the issue we just discussed regarding inequitable funding. Sorry.
It's a communist plot to keep you from getting your remarks.
It's been going on for a while now. I thought it was just my immediate family members, but welcome to the fold.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe so. Maybe it's my phone. I apologize. Maybe not. So, the issue is whether schools are meeting the requirements of the law. And we have this choice option is basically the education reform movement. And the council has been asking to make sure that all policies ensure that all students, particularly students with disabilities, are afforded that same choice. The law is clear, has always been clear, that charter schools were started in 1995 to serve students at risk. It was further clarified 2 years ago. Is it stated in this report that you just passed up that not only do they have to serve a fair share of students who are economically disadvantaged, but students with disabilities, and the board, the BESE, needs to monitor that and provide corrective action to it. Part of the corrective actions that were recommended, that I do appreciate having more time for stakeholder input, is looking at application materials and procedures. And before us right now is a school that's authorized by you in a local system that is using and wants to codify an admission requirement based on proficiency. Granted, it's proficiency in French, but many students I represent would not probably pass the proficiency in English, much less French. And when I look at their distribution of students with disabilities, as the report you just showed, was just shown, it's not reflective of the population in the school, in the parish they're in. And when I look at the report that was produced last year that shows the breakdown of kids with disabilities, the types of disabilities, over 95% of their students with disabilities, the few that are there, have speech language only, which is the more mild of the disabilities, not the more significant disabilities. How does this play out? It plays out in two ways. We just talked about money. When the state did change the state share of funds for charter schools last year, they sent a correction of how much schools would get. This school got $750,000 less than they would have, because the students they enroll do not meet the at-risk requirements. That was just the state share. The local share, as I broke down to you earlier, is about the same amount for this school. But that was the previous argument. Now the issue is, are you going to codify a policy that's going to ensure that kids with disabilities are not going to be allowed into the school because they're not likely to pass a proficiency test as much as kids without disabilities? I encourage y'all to say no and to follow the recommendations that the department. This recommendation to pass this by the department is in direct conflict with the recommendation it just put forth with making sure charter schools don't serve too few students with disabilities. Thank you.
Who's next, please? Ms. Dunn?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is April Dunn. I'm the Vice Chair of the Louisiana Development Disability Council, and I oppose this recommendation because it's going to affect students with disabilities not to be included in the charter school because of if they fail the French or Spanish test. I think it should be equal testing for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next, please? Please say your name for the record. Check, see if the mic's on, please.
I'm Brandy. I come to this to oppose it on a personal level. I was born with severe brain damage. I have cerebral palsy, epilepsy, hydrocephalus. I mean, my medical record is longer than I am tall. In spite of all that, I went from Mayfair Elementary in East Baton Rouge Parish to McKinley Middle. When I was at McKinley Middle in the magnet program, before it was torn down and redone, and my IEP meeting was my last one when I was getting ready to go to Strum after I got accepted into the computer technology magnet program. They tried to sit in the IEP meeting and tell everybody that I wouldn't be able to do it, that I needed to go to another school because I wouldn't be able to keep up. I left McKinley Middle on the AB Honor Roll. When I got to Struma, I almost couldn't graduate because I had trouble in Spanish and they forced me to take Spanish. I'm better in French. Being that I'm from here and I didn't know too much about Spanish back then, and it was kind of hard for me to comprehend. I mean, 3/4 of the part of my brain that is actually not in existence is the part that affects comprehension. And I personally feel that, I started a hashtag on Twitter and Facebook recently for inclusion, not discrimination, because first of all, the American with Disabilities Act says that you can't discriminate against somebody based on a disability, plus you have to make reasonable accommodations. And if somebody with a disability can't pass a proficiency test to get in the program without reasonable accommodations made, that's discrimination, and it's really not fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm Karen Artis. I'm from St. Tammany Parish, and I am concerned that you are considering changing state rules to allow a charter school to include as a requirement that students entering that school must pass an assessment based on a grade-appropriate proficiency. This particular assessment is in French language, and because it is the school's mission of French language immersion, this assessment requirement is likely the reason the school is failing to meet the minimum requirement of serving its fair share of students with disabilities. I don't think BESE should allow a child or a charter school to have admission requirements that include passing an assessment of grade level proficiency in any subject. If the call is to teach French, why do kids have to know French for an enrollment entry? I want choice for my child with a disability. Choice should be accessible to all students. Charter schools were created to serve students at risk, and students with disabilities fall into that risk. I ask that you oppose the recommendation to allow this school to require students to pass a French assessment enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have two others that wish to speak. I think I've called this name, but Keith Bertlet. Okay, and then Caroline Romer. I know I called the name. You were at the table just a minute ago.
Yes, sir, I was.
I thought so.
Thank you. Keith Bartlett, 5951 Patton Street, New Orleans. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My position is principal of the Lycée Français in New Orleans, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about our school and certainly to invite each of you to visit it. The concern this morning is about special needs children, and I'm here to tell you that the data as far as today is concerned is that 9% of our students have special needs. 5% of our students have severe disabilities, and we're talking about autism spectrum disorder, we're talking about behavior disorders, other health impairments, specific learning disabilities, vision and hearing impairment. So we are serving a population that mirrors the full population. Currently we have 35 students who are in the process of evaluation. It is anticipated that those children will come back with specific learning needs and will require IEPs. Once that happens, by the end of this academic year, 11% of our students will have special education IEPs. That puts us at the same percentage as the average of New Orleans public schools. So this is a school, ladies and gentlemen, that is serving the special needs population. With respect to the French language, please know that we are a French immersion school. In fact, we will become the only one in the United States that provides a free public education to youngsters accredited by the French Ministry of Education. So we'll be the first K through 12 free public lycée in the United States. Our teachers come from France or other Francophone countries. They're certified by the French Ministry of Education, and the language of instruction is French. We do not teach French. Our teachers teach in French. So there's a huge difference between being a school that teaches French and a school where French is the language of instruction. What happens in our classrooms is that when children enter the classroom, say at 3rd or 4th grade, that teacher is talking to children as though they were in a Francophone country. To place a youngster in a classroom where that level of instruction is being given in a language that is totally foreign to them is to absolutely set that child up to fail. The original charter of lycée calls for the fact that children need to demonstrate the understanding of French before they come into classrooms outside of pre-K and K. At those two levels, youngsters who speak English, just regular American children, come into the classrooms. The teachers begin to teach them all at the very basic level of instruction using the French language. Of course, as those children move ahead in their language acquisition, the content becomes more challenging. So we need to introduce children who enter the school. We need to be certain that the children who enter the school higher than kindergarten level are able to understand what the teachers are telling them. And so what we do is we administer a very simple proficiency test that simply is intended to determine their level of understanding of the language. Can these children be successful when their instruction is delivered in a language that is not their native tongue?
Do any board members have a question of him? I'm going to make an exception.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I do.
You do? Okay.
I do. Yes, sir. So I'm hearing a little conflicting information that, you know, children would need to be able to understand at that level if they're going to be taught in French. But yet you say that you have a certain number of children with disabilities. Have they taken that, your little test, the entrance test for the French?
The children with disabilities have come to us at the pre-kindergarten and kindergarten levels. And those youngsters either have come to us with the disability or we've discovered the disability once they're enrolled in our
Okay, so the kids with special needs are either pre-K or K, correct?
Or they have been identified early at those levels and
Right.
they're moving through the curriculum.
Right. And the, I believe you said 11 evaluations. Who's doing those evaluations? Orleans Parish? You said you had kids that were waiting.
We contract out with psychologists and educational diagnosticians.
Okay. And so you're waiting on evaluations for those
For 35 children.
And you anticipate that they may
It's highly likely that they will come back with
And what
disability.
ages are they?
They vary from first graders through third graders typically.
Okay. So
The school
typically-
currently goes through 6th grade.
Sir?
The school currently goes through 6th grade, so we're
Sixth
not a
grade.
full lycée yet. A lycée is a high school. So I'm adding a year each time, so each year. So in 5 or 6 years, 6, 7 years, we will be a full high school. Our students will graduate.
Okay. So there's really not a pass-fail to your little assessment for French, is that correct?
If students master, if they demonstrate 70% proficiency in the little assessment that we use, we accept them.
Okay. Is that given in French?
It is. That's just to see if they can understand.
So a pre-kindergarten
No,
student...
ma'am. Pre-kindergarten and kindergartners do not have to
Don't do
know
that.
a word of French when they
Okay.
go to our school.
But second on up?
First on up.
Okay.
That's correct.
First on up, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members have a
Yes,
question?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Do you know if there are any other French immersion programs around the state that are not charter school hosted, that are just regular public school hosted?
Can you ask that? Ask that question again, please.
Okay. Are there any regular public schools that offer a French immersion program?
Yes, there are regular public school immersions. I worked in Lafayette Parish, and they've got a wonderful immersion program there. They teach the Louisiana curriculum in Spanish, French, Chinese, and other languages.
In grades above kindergarten, do they require a proficiency test?
I believe they do. I'm not certain. The school in which I worked in Lafayette Parish did not have any students coming in at those levels. So I do not know if
I'm sorry, Keith. The ones with which I'm familiar, including in this parish, do. And after we're done with the comments, I'm going to try to make some perspective on it. But I think it's fair to say that the vast majority of dual language programs, which, by the way, we should all be immensely proud of, irrespective of this discussion, are in Lafayette, East Baton Rouge, they're across the state. Almost always they have this kind of thing, because at a certain point,
would
you
have been
just
my
can't
guess.
teach people in a language that they don't know. And you can debate, of course, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. You can debate the age level, but it is common practice.
So this would be allowing this school to do the same thing that other schools across the state are doing, regular public schools
I think that's
across
a
the
fair
state are
statement.
doing.
Yes, sir, that's a
Thank
fair
you.
statement.
Ms. Voce?
Mr. Brock, you made the statement that, and I know in pre-K and K, then you take all children.
That's
according to the one app. And you're making steps now to bring up the at-risk percentage and the students with disability percentage to what they need to be in order to meet the requirements of the law? Through that process, through the pre-K and K process?
Yes, ma'am.
In other words, that the report that we deferred on, and I hate to look at that since we deferred on it, but it shows that you do not meet those requirements. But in your comments to us, you said that your percentage of students with disabilities was increasing to a higher percentage than it's listed in here. So my assumption is, as you're pulling in the students at the pre-K and K level, that you are looking at that and making sure that you will meet those percentages as you take in each new class.
The one app process does give priority to youngsters who come to us with IEPs.
Right, well, and I would hope that when we do look at the report, and if those percentages are not being met, that you would have a process, and that we as the department and BESE would make sure that that was followed. And I can see how if you get them to enter at that level and then begin to meet those requirements, and I have no problem with this. The only problem I do have a little bit is the statement when you say, when they come in and being taught in a different language, we're setting them up for failure, because statewide we've got non-English speaking children under ELL coming into every one of our public schools across the state, charter schools, traditional public schools, who speak absolutely no English and are being taught in a full immersion program in English, and we've got to provide those supports for them to increase their English proficiency so that they will be successful. I realize that's not the format of your school where you would bring them up and provide the supports to increase their French skills so that they would become proficient and not lag behind. So I don't necessarily have a problem with what you're asking, as long as the commitment is there with your new enrollees in pre-K and K, that these percentages of both at-risk and special needs children are met with your incoming classes, and we have that assurance from you.
We're making every attempt to get to that number. We're currently right about 50% of our children considered at risk, both economically disadvantaged and with special needs. All our marketing, all our resources are targeted to the population that we're trying to attract and to serve.
And you would give preference to those students?
They do absolutely get
within-
preference,
okay.
enrollment preference.
Because then, well, these numbers that we're getting in this report don't necessarily support what you're saying. That's why I
The
wanted
numbers
to
in the
make sure these
report are giving
are a
you...
year old.
Well, yeah, they're a year old. And I'm telling you today that as of this morning, 9% of our students do have the special needs classification.
Thank you.
And may I also say that with respect to ELL, an important distinction is when a youngster enters an English school and they're coming from a different language, they're immersed in English not just in the school but in the whole community. Like everything that we have in our communities are in English. When we watch television, when we do shopping, when we see road signs, everything's English. But the difference is when a child is an English speaker in an English community coming into a French school, they only get the French when they're in the French class or in the school. So it takes a lot longer to acquire that second language.
Okay.
I believe Ms. Holloway.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate you on your efforts in your school and your increase in what you're doing. There's a lot of good things. I also want you to know, as well as everybody else, that this is a school of choice, and parents have that option to attend your school, enroll in your school. I also understand that the law does not require you or any charter school to advocate or ask a parent if there are special needs or not. So that's a very difficult and delicate area to be able to recruit and to meet that criteria. So including at-risk. So when there's a school of choice, it's very hard to get that at-risk population, and hopefully you have a bus system. I mean, I really don't know. But I understand where you're coming from, and I do understand the efforts that every charter school has to put in place, and all the processes. So continue to do what you're doing, and thank you for your efforts.
Any other board members? I'd like to recognize myself for a second. I want to go back to something you said when you first set out. And I want to see if I've captured exactly what you said. Other than pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, you don't teach children French, you teach them in French. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So with that in mind, I guess your expectation is that a child coming in a grade other than pre-K or K, coming to your school, have at least a minimal proficiency in French so that you can in fact instruct them in French, and then as the course or the years progress, they get more and more proficient in the
language.
Is that an accurate statement of what you're saying?
Yes,
and
sir.
what you're trying to accomplish with this amendment?
Yes, sir.
Any other board members have any question? Oh, we still have another lady to speak to.
Hi, Caroline Romer, Louisiana Association of Public Charter Schools. I just wanted to...
Is your mic on?
Yes, the green light is on.
Okay.
Correct. Caroline Romer, Louisiana Association of Public Charter Schools. I'd like to correct the record. Mr. Fleming alluded to the law for charter schools, and he did speak to the at-risk component, but he did fail to mention that the charter school law also specifically allows for charters to have missions and to put admission criteria in place to meet the mission of those schools. The law specifically references schools of performing arts and language, foreign language schools. So I just wanted to further that conversation a little bit and make sure that you as BESE members were aware completely of what the law does allow for. And I think that it's really important too, as just a point of information and learning opportunity, that in New Orleans, all schools in New Orleans are part of the One App, or will be soon, including Lycée Français, which means they do not control their lotteries. That is set up through the district, and applications are taken through the district. There is literally a computer system that sets up the weights and those sorts of things. So the intent there is for that process to be completely blind to what the needs of the student are, but to build out an algorithm that does allow for at-risk students to have priority in that system. And that's how Lycée, over the last couple years, being part of One App, has increased their numbers through that. So that is a process that is working there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members have a question or comment?
I just have a question.
Ms. Lewis first, and then I'll get you some.
Sure. Just a follow-up on what Ms. Romer said. So I have a question. So with the One App system, you're not picking and choosing your kids, right? So they select. So how is this amendment going to impact you? I mean, is there like a button that they pick that says their kids have a French proficiency? Because if a parent is opting for their kids to be part of this immersion, but they don't meet the proficiency, how are you going to account for that? Do you understand my question?
I'm not certain that
if you're not controlling who comes to your school, how are you going to ensure that you're going to get enough enrollment to meet the proficiency requirement for your school to be in operation? I'm not understanding that.
So let me maybe take a big step back. To answer the question briefly, One App identifies kids in certain ways. Like I know, for example, that my brother is named Mike and he goes to school at that school. It knows where I live. So there are tags that in the algorithm you put on a child. One of the tags that would be put on the child is they've demonstrated proficiency in French. So in other words, the algorithm runs and assigns kids partially based on those priorities. There is a sibling priority. There is a geographic priority. The one thing that never happens is Keith never says, I only take these kids. Does that make sense?
So there's a tag already on this kid.
There is a way of identifying in the system a number of factors about each child, and one of them would become this factor. Just like we identify who your sibling is, what part of town you live in, and so on.
And I can add that our admissions office calls the families of everybody who's applied for grades 1 and higher, just seeking whether they're coming from another French school or if they have a native speaking background. If they don't, we simply ask them then to schedule the screener, and then they come in and do it. So, and then once that's determined they have passed the screening, then they can go back into the One App for the regular lottery.
Okay. Dr. Jones, Kira Orange Jones, I believe you were next.
I'll pass on the question.
You'll pass? Okay. Any other, Ms. Boucher?
Yeah, so just so I'm clear, because I'm looking at your application, for students in grades, first grade and higher, they do take the proficiency exam and go through the One App, but they have to take the French proficiency. But for your pre-K and K, there is no French proficiency exam, correct?
That is correct.
So, and that to me is where you would be able to increase these numbers through the process that would give preference to students maybe at risk or have special needs so that these numbers would comply. But for first grade and higher, instead of going through the regular One App line, they do have to pass the French proficiency. And I don't have a problem with that as long as the pre-K and K is open and those students are able to come in.
And the parents self-identify whether their children are special needs or not in the One App process, and then they get a higher priority once they do demonstrate that.
So thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure we all understood that there was a mechanism for entry for all students at that level.
Absolutely.
Any other questions by board members? Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question about mission-driven in terms of the charter law. So you can answer that, either of you or superintendent, just for clarification for us and for our audience.
There are a small number of categories in the charter law that allow for mission-specific schools. And the law says specifically that there may be dual language type schools. This is obviously an example of that. And that such a school may have such a criterion as is being considered today. Again, only if it is a mission-driven school, and then the law identifies a certain set of missions, of which foreign language or dual language is one.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one small question.
Go ahead.
Quick question. I'm a huge fan of the model in general, just the immersion program. I'm trying to figure out, based on what we know about the lab in New Orleans, and Superintendent, this question may be for you. What do we know about the demographics of families who are actually prioritizing this school in the top 3 of their choices?
I don't know that we have those data offhand. I would say that this school has made great strides toward being more diverse. You may recall 4 years ago we had some concerns about this school and its diversity. Under Keith's leadership, a lot of that has changed. But it's fair to say it does not reflect the diversity of the school system as a whole. I think that is largely, frankly, because if you know New Orleans, you know that the school's location is very, very far deep into uptown New Orleans, off of major thoroughfares. And like most schools, it has a racial background that is largely in accordance with its region. But the school is dramatically more diverse than is the neighborhood in which it exists, which is an overwhelmingly white neighborhood, and the school is a racially diverse school, if not reflective of the full school system. I will tell you, in reviewing this policy myself, I always have questions about academic or any skill-based mechanism, because they are inherently going to have an effect on the makeup of the school. The question is, can you run the school with the mission without it?
Right.
And it is a fair thing to say that at a certain point, if the whole mission of the school is to teach in 2 languages, accepting someone into the school who doesn't have a word of the language defeats the mission of the school. And so the question is, what's the balance point? They're not saying don't take pre-kindergartners. They're not saying don't take kindergartners. They're saying at a certain point, the mission of the school becomes compromised. And I think, therefore, it's a prudent thing, provided that you have some of the at-risk requirements and other things with Ms. Bochet and others have been talking about today, which are in the law and are strong. So that gives me a reason to say I think this is a prudent policy.
All right, any other board member questions? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor to approve the department's recommendations. Are there any objections to the motion? Motion carries. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 163, item 2.5, consideration of the extension of the charter contract for North Shore Charter School. The department recommendation is to defer until April 2017.
So moved.
163.
160. We have a motion. Do we have a second? The motion is by Ms. Bophy, and the second is by Ms. Holloway. Dr. Bophy and Ms. Holloway.
Thank you. Members, just to give you a quick update on this, you'll recall that this is a Type 2 charter school that's up for an extension. We are not fully comfortable with the performance of the school in the past. This does not meet the terms for extension. However, it is in a very small school system where there are only 3 other schools. All of those schools have been Ds and Fs in recent years, which really, under the law, also calls on us to look at other options. We have engaged the local school board in a months-long discussion now as to whether or not they would become the authorizer of this charter school and commit to preserving the option for families while at the same time improving all 4 schools. They have engaged us in that discussion. We believe that they are doing so earnestly. They have advertised for a charter process in Bogalusa. They are in dialogue with the board of the North Shore Charter School. And North Shore Charter School has engaged very earnestly. Our staff, Ms. Edmonston, The state senator and state representative in the region have been involved in many discussions, and the charter school is working with the local board diligently. Our recommendation to you is to keep that process going, allow them to continue the dialogue without for you committing one way or the other. However, we have told the Bogalusa City School Board that we believe this process must be wrapped up by your April meeting. And we have communicated that this week, in fact, to them. So we ask for you to defer with a commitment that we are now on the record to them saying this is good, you're doing the right thing, but wrap it up by April. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So should our motion be to defer until the April meeting, or? Okay, and did we actually say that in it, or did we just say defer? Okay, so that's the motion that's on the floor, and we have a second for it. We have some cards. Do you folks want to speak if it's likely that that's going to go through to defer? I'll call the names. If you do, come on up to the table. Dee Dee McCullough, Gwendolyn Peugeot, Carmel Grantham, Miltona Golar, and Felicia Workman. All right, who's going first, please?
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
I'm Dee Dee McCullough. I am principal at North Shore Charter School in Bogalusa. I'm a lifelong resident of Bogalusa, was educated in the Bogalusa City School System. I served as a teacher in the Bogalusa City School System, and I served 8 years on the school board of the city of Bogalusa. I know a little bit about education in Bogalusa. We come to you today not to take much of your time, but to simply to let you put a face with our name. I have been here for the last several meetings and have witnessed you make very difficult decisions not to extend some charter schools because they have not met their growth target. I have heard your answers to directors, teachers, parents, and students as to why you make the decisions that you do. And the resounding answer has been that those schools have higher performing schools in their district. However, as stated on several occasions by Superintendent White, Bogalusa is in a unique situation because it is a city district, not a parish district. And aside from our school, North Shore Charter, there is only one choice for parents and their children. There's one elementary school, there's one middle school, and there is one high school. Even though the City of Bogalusa School District has a slightly higher school performance score as a D, we have 650 students whose parents feel that North Shore Charter is a better choice for their student. We have been asked to negotiate with Bogalusa City to become a Type 1 charter, and we are committed to that process. As long as we get to keep our autonomy and be allowed to continue with the proven growth that we have. My colleagues are going to share just a few minutes of the growth that we have been witnessing this year.
Next, please.
My name is Felicia Workman. I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have worked at the charter school in Bogalusa since it began in 2013. I also am a lifelong resident of Bogalusa, was educated in the Bogalusa City Schools. I have watched our school grow from 123 students, I believe, the very first year to over 600 this year. So the parents of 600 students have chosen to educate their children at our school. And I think that that is an important thing for us all to remember. Those parents deserve to have a choice. And without us, there is only one other option. And most of these parents are not in an economic position to send their students to a school outside of our parish, another public school outside of our parish, or to a private school within our parish. I really I've been there since the beginning, and I think that we have turned the corner this year. I'm on principal number 3 in our 4 years. I saw from the beginning things that concerned me, having worked in both a middle school and an elementary school prior. But there was things I was not in control of. And I see those things being corrected this year. We have a board now who is almost completely brand new members. They are more engaged than they have ever been in the 4 years that I've been there. We have made great strides academically. We have the data to substantiate that. We have a new leadership team that is constantly assessing our students' progress. And when they see that things are not working for a particular group of students, they make the necessary changes. Even this late in the year, in March, we are putting another intervention in place for students who are not showing the progress that we feel they should. All we ask is that you grant this deferral to give us time to work with the City of Bogalusa Schools to do what's best for the students in our community, because that's our mission. That's the one thing that is always in our forefront. Always, what's the best decision for the students? Not what's the best financial decision, but what's best for these kids. And we have parents of 600 kids that feel like it's best for their students to be with us. So we appreciate you considering this deferral.
Thank you. Who's next?
Good afternoon. My name is Wendell. Good afternoon. My name is Gwendolyn Pygott. I am a teacher at North Shore Charter School. I come to you speaking with much enthusiasm because I believe that we are moving forward. This is my 3rd year at the school. I've been there for 3 of the 4 years that they've been there. And my commitment and my peers' commitment of those of whom I interact with daily. They are committed to the students. We're committed to the guardians. And I am committed to the incoming staff as far as supporting, encouraging, and as a result of all of the commitment that we have displayed, we've seen, I've noticed teacher retention has greatly increased. This is one of the positive changes that contributes to the growth of the school. Student attendance is rarely low. I have the privilege of serving some 70-something 5th grade students, and rarely are any of my blocks below 20-something per day. The interventions in place also address students who are at risk. I have noticed that the enrichment programs, talented art and music and so forth, also address those students who are above grade level or benchmarking. The school climate has greatly changed over the 3 years that I've been there. I think the school climate is more disciplined, more organized. We have things in place such as that it appears that maybe some students were not used to, always wearing IDs, staff parking permits, student parking areas, all of these things that might seem small. But with this new administration that has come in, this is really contributing to making our school, North Shore Charter, a place that is conducive for teaching and for learning, which ultimately is leading to greater achievement in our school rating. Last but not least, we are the choice that the City of Bogalusa needs. We're the choice that they deserve. And we're the choice that they have chosen. And that shows by the attendance of the students in the school every day. All that we ask of the board is that we have the opportunity to prove that we are indeed that choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next, please?
Superintendent White, Dr. Gary Jones, committee chair, and all committee members, let me express my sincere gratitude for allowing me to speak to you today. I'm honored to come and speak on behalf of the North Shore Charter School. I worked in the Bogalusa City Schools for 30 years.
Please tell us your name for the record.
Milton Golar. As a certified and qualified teacher, after leaving Bogalusa, I worked in Mississippi for about 4 years. A member of the Louisiana Association of Educators, sat on the board of directors of LAE Executive Committee. And in June of 2016, I received a call to come work for the North Shore Charter School. I immediately accepted the task. Principal D.D. McCullough had previously served as a school board member for the Bogalusa City Schools. I knew of her success in striving to make academic achievement her top priority for children. This has been a very rewarding experience for me my first year at the charter school. I have personally witnessed numerous implementations and transformations in moving and advancing the North Shore Charter School to academic success this school year. Principal McCullough, along with the staff at North Shore Charter School, works daily to meet the students where they are, provide quality education instruction that engages all students, and prepares them for advanced learning in the 21st century education arena. As a music teacher, I work daily in reading intervention from 8:15 to 9:15. The staff at North Shore Charter School works across the curriculum, not only in the field of expertise to assist students in their pursuit of success. I have seen tremendous growth from students with reading difficulties. They continue to accelerate in reading daily. Those students that were on grade level and above have surpassed their reading targets. I, along with other staff at the North Shore Charter School, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, paraprofessionals, and professionals, we have made a personal commitment to ensure that every child at the North Shore Charter School succeeds academically in a loving, nurturing, and safe environment. This can be evidenced by just stopping by, visiting our school, collaborating with the administrative staff and parents of the North Shore Charter School. We face many challenges at school daily, but we are committed to using all our strategic and academic resources to ensure every child succeeds at the North Shore Charter School. I come before you today asking you to give the new administration at the North Shore Charter School a chance to continue to use our God-given talents to help the boys and girls succeed academically in the Bogalusa community. We are moving in the right direction and have enormous community support. Thank you again for allowing me to share some of the many changes and implementations at the North Shore Charter School. The best is yet to come. We at the North Shore Charter School strongly advocate, if we believe it, we can achieve it. We are totally committed in helping the children of Bogalusa succeed and reach their ultimate career goals and succeed in life. And I'll also say this, with the Almighty's continued guidance, we will remain a positive light, leading and guiding our students to academic success. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Carmel Grantham. I too am a resident of Bogalusa area. I grew up there. However, I made my living on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, having lived there most of my adult life. I retired from a National Blue Ribbon school, Goshen High School, in 2008. At that time, I came to Bogalusa and I taught for 5 years. I have no complaints about the Bogalusa High School or any people associated with it. I worked there for 5 years, and just to give you credibility on how I stand and what I say, I was working there as the junior English teacher and ACT prep teacher the year that Bogalusa High School was the second in the state for raising its ACT scores. I know what data it takes to raise student scores. I am prepared and I continue to raise student scores. I have given each of you a letter and a packet. I hope you have it in front of you. If you do have, will you please turn to the yellow page, tag page there, and I have a recording here of grades 2 through 6. This is on our intervention that we began, and these did not start. This, is the middle score and the beginning of the year for the dibbles most of you are aware of. I want to call your attention to the grade 2, where it says Teacher B made 100% improvement on the dibble scores. In that class, there were 5 special population students. There again, on grade 3, Teacher C made 95% improvement with 7 special education students there. In every grade, you can see improvement from the beginning of the year dibbles to the middle of the year. I would ask you to please read this in its entirety. I'm hoping and I feel confident that we will continue to make progress and improve in each area. It's up to you whether or not these students can continue to improve their performance. I know what it takes. I've been there with students. In Mississippi, I taught every level from AP English to the basic level student. I was able to bring them to performance onto a top performance level, and you can check with my prior principal, who is now the superintendent. I call your attention to the next page that is coated with a pink paper. This is based on our Read Naturally program. I have never in my life, in all my years of teaching, seen a program such as this. I have been associated with the many reading programs. But on this, you can see from the intensive student to the benchmark, the progress that has been made on just a sample of our students. What I would love to see is for you to visit our school, where I could show you my typed copy of every school student who has taken the Dibble scores this year. I would like you to see the performance and the improvement.
Thank you, ma'am, but your time has expired.
Okay, will you please read my letter at your own time?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
We will do. I will make a motion to make sure that they read it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No, don't record that. Thank y'all for your testimony. The motion before the board is to defer to the April meeting. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any objection to the motion? No comment. All right.
I'd just like to take a point of privilege. I have some time invested watching this school emerge. Your scores look great. I just would like to say that in the midst of turmoil and not really being sure if they're going to continue to be a school next year, they have not only continued to do a good job, but they have added programs for parents and teachers. And I just want to say that I commend you for doing that, and thank you for your testimony.
Ms.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Holloway.
Thank you. Thank you for your passion for your charter. I have a question, and it has to do with data. In regards to Read Naturally, you only gave us...
do we need to bring up the lady back to the table?
Maybe the principal or whomever can answer.
One of you come back to the table,
Thank
please.
you. How many students do you have?
We have approximately 625, or between 625 and 670.
Good, thank you. The fluency graph, do you utilize any other type of assessment at your school besides Read Naturally?
We do the Dibbles program. Are you familiar with the Dibbles? Yes, we do that, but we use that to prove what our students have done on the Read Naturally program.
Okay, good.
Please refer to my graphs on the back of the page you have.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The other question I have is in regards to the LEAP scores. You're indicating some information here on math.
Yes,
3 through 6, and you're showing only 56 students here, basic to mastery, and of course approaching basic to basic, either ELA or math, and it's showing just 56. Where are the scores for the other students, or do you have any advanced or mastery?
Oh, yes, I do have those, but what I was working with was to see which students, how close they were to passing the test, what I consider passing the LEAP test, and I figured those students only, because they had to be at least on the basic level. So I was working from approaching basic to see how close they were. I do have all the scores. In fact, I have them with me, but they're on the
Thank you.
website.
How about unsats?
Pardon me?
Do you have any unsats? Satisfactory? No unsats?
Oh,
at your
yes,
school?
we have unsatisfactories, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would encourage you to look at that too when you look at the data.
I have done that too.
Thank you.
They're below the approaching basic. With the approaching basics, I feel like I have.
Please pull the mic a little closer. I don't think anybody...
Oh, I'm sorry. With the approaching basics, I feel that I have a better chance of raising their scores. With my experience, I've worked considerably through the years with the ACT. I have found that students at the very high level are more likely to raise their scores on any test, and those that are just there, barely, because they lack the skills to take the test, especially our students in Bogalusa, because they are so limited in their resources. They have not money to attend functions that would help them pass these standardized tests. So that's the reason I was looking mostly at the approaching basics. But yes, we did have quite a few unsatisfactory, but these I felt that I can pull in and let them pass the test.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions or comments by board members? Hearing none, the motion before the board and the second is to defer to the April meeting. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 165, item 2.6, consideration of an update report regarding the memorandum of understanding between the Caddo Parish School District and the Recovery School District regarding failing schools and the operation of the school at the site currently occupied by the Linwood Public Charter School for the 2017-2018 school year. The department recommendation is to receive the report.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Dr. Bophy. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Voce.
Members, as you'll recall, this is an issue that has several different dimensions to it. I should note that Mr. Davis has been quite close to every one of these issues as he's the elected member from that region. And it's really three issues that to focus on. First, there are 4 schools in Caddo Parish that are eligible for the state to assume governance over because of performance. Second, there is currently a memorandum of understanding in place between the state and the Caddo Parish School Board regarding struggling schools in Caddo, and that expires this spring. And so if the state is not to take action on those 4 schools, the state must do something, and it is considering whether to renegotiate that memorandum of understanding in place of taking over struggling schools. Also, there is one school that is currently governed by the state, Linwood Public Charter School, that has struggled. It is in a neighborhood vicinity, frankly, to most of the other schools in question. And you have both voted to not renew its charter, but at the same time to not remove the kids from that school and to sustain there being a school in that spot. Mr. Davis, Superintendent Dobard, and myself, along with Assistant Superintendent Narachania, and our network leader, Dana Talley, have been involved in a number of discussions with Superintendent Goree, who is here, General Counsel, I believe that's her title, Reggie Abrams, as well as Assistant Superintendent Keith Burton, all of whom I very much appreciate making the long drive from Shreveport to be here today. We have been meeting with them routinely, including yesterday we met with them, and we have had a number of discussions that I think are among the best discussions that I've had in my time in this job with district leadership. They have indicated an interest in extremely progressive, innovative, creative solutions to help transform schools that are struggling and were struggling well before their tenures in these roles. And we believe that by combining state strategies and local strategies, state resources and local resources in a large number of schools, we will produce a plan that is a hallmark and an example not just to the rest of the state but to the rest of the country. So I'm very excited about that. That plan is not yet complete. In fact, as of an hour ago, Assistant Superintendent Burton and my team have been going back and forth corresponding the final details of that plan. And so what I would ask your consideration of today are 2 things. First, to note that there will be a plan in place. I believe our negotiations will be concluded, and I believe they will be concluded within a matter of days. Second, that Linwood, so far, has not been a part of that negotiation. And what that means is that Linwood remains in the status that it is in right now, which is that the state will operate that school for next year. Barring any further changes, the state will operate that school for next year. So what you should expect from us is a document that attempts to memorialize an agreement between the local school system and the state soon. Also, that the state next year will operate Linwood Public Charter School. Happy to answer questions. Appreciate the chance to provide a report.
We have a couple of folks who would like to speak, and we're going to invite them to the table. That's Kathy Bonds and Jackie Lansdale. Please come to the table. Please state your name for the record. Either one of you. Your pick.
Jackie Lansdale, I'm president of the Red United, representing Keep and Caddo, and I really want to express our appreciation to this August board in order for
Is your mic? Yeah, pull it real close.
Okay, got it. Okay. I really want to express our appreciation to this August board to allow me as the president and representatives from the Red River United to come speak before you today and tell you a little story about from our perspective of Caddo. Caddo is a very unique district. It's an urban district, and quite contrary to most urban districts, it has a huge, almost 95% population that remain in our public schools, and it historically enjoyed support of the tax base. I want to tell you a little bit about the fact that, my first experience with the Recovery School District back in 2008, 2009, my memory is that is a major, major financial drain to the district. Really did not see any real value with the Recovery School District until 2013 with the transformation zone. And they brought a lot of things that I think that when you're talking about charter schools, that they actually did those. Charter schools historically, from their creation, were to bring unique aspects to the public school system to be replicated. Our zone is replicated. We have programs within the zone that I'm very proud of that are being replicated. More people wish they could be in the zone just because of the program. So, from that perspective, I don't see that with the charter schools in Caddo. I see them as more of a turf grab. I do not see any type of uniqueness in their program. And I think that is noteworthy to this board. And when you're looking at charter schools, do they bring something unique to the district? If they don't, then they're nothing but a turf grab. We've seen growth. We've seen ACT growth, we've seen test score growth, we've seen graduation growth, but none of us have been resting on our laurels there. We're getting plenty within a few short weeks to go and visit a community school in Texas, and we are doing that with our community partners, with the organizations, and with the district, and we're very proud of that. We've been working on a pay schedule that we're very proud of, that talks about making sure that we incentivize hard-to-staff schools because we have classes that don't have certified teachers in them. I think that should be a priority. That there should be incentivized where young teachers see that you don't have to work 30 years to get out of here. That there is incentivized and strategic plans to encourage our new teachers to stay. I think that's important. We would like to do more. We would like TAP programs. We'd like universal pre-K. But you know what? We've had a lot of difficulty in that because we have started to see erosion from public support because of how we have been characterized by this board. And we'd like to see universal pre-K. We'd like to see TAP where we don't. Last thing I'm going to say is, let's don't revert back to prior to Brown versus Topeka Board of Education. This should not be what this is about. When you lay your head on the pillow tonight, it shouldn't be, you ask yourself, is this about black kids or is this about white kids? Is this about white money people or is this about black money people or this is about money? And I pray that when you lay your head on the pillow tonight that you can say, this is about all the boys and girls in public schools and you've done the right thing. Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am.
Pull that very close, Ms. Bonds, and make sure you hit the button.
It's got to be your best friend.
Members of the board,
Closer.
Superintendent White.
Yeah.
Okay. Members of the board, Superintendent White, I'm Kathy Bonds, Director of the Fair Park High School Alumni Association in Shreveport, Caddo Parish. We have some very serious concerns about what is going on in Caddo education. There are nearly 20,000 students in Caddo Parish in D and F schools. There are over half of all the students enrolled in Caddo Parish are in these D and F schools. 60% of the schools in Caddo Parish are D and F. We have worked very hard at our school and really care about our students there. On January the 10th, the Caddo Parish School Board brought a motion to the table. No, it was not on the agenda. Our school board member was not aware that this motion was going to be made. The motion is to reconfigure Fair Park High School. We are an historic High School. We opened in 1928 and have served our community ever since then, and would like to continue doing that. The motion was to reconfigure our school and make it a middle school, taking our 700 students, high school students, to Booker T. Washington High School, where their enrollment in high school is approximately 400 students. They would then move the 200 students at Booker T. Washington High School to Fair Park High School, transporting these kids back and forth, changing schools, and then add 200 more middle schoolers from another school. Our poor children have been moved from Bethune Middle School to Fair Park for 2 years to a middle school. Then they made a middle school out of another school, Lakeshore, and then brought them back, and now we're going to move them again. This is a failing school. Think of the instability. Think of what this does to your life. Is this the way you would want to go to high school or send your children or grandchildren to high school? We're asking that the board please keep us under the Recovery School District and do not allow this reconfiguration of our school. We have talked to everyone we can in Caddo Parish before making this step to come to the BESE. Our children in a failing school, and let me give you some statistics. In 2015, Fair Park had 727 students. 715 of those students were black. 8 of those students were white. 94.77% were disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged. They do not have textbooks to take home and study. How would we expect them to be a successful school? They arrive at school by bus, most of them, right before school starts. They have 30 minutes or less for lunch, no study time, and they leave after school. These children do not all have cell phones. They do not have iPads. They do not have computers at home for the majority of them. Most struggle to keep the electricity on. Why would Caddo Parish not provide the basic tools for education? Someone needs to look into this. This is disgraceful for our parish. It is disgraceful for our state. And we are coming to you and asking you to stop this. Also, we have spoken to our BESE board member, privately to Mr. Dobar, and tried to reach the superintendent to discuss this. We have some recommendations that we think would be helpful. It's certainly worth trying. And we are willing to help. We want this resolved. How can we be a successful country if we don't educate our children? And the only way out of poverty is with an education. So we are asking you to step in and help us to help these children. These are lives. Not only does it affect their lives, it affects their family's life and their future family. Please step in and do something to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'm glad to put a face with it. I believe you and I spent a good bit of time on the phone the other day discussing
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Nice to
Thank you for all for listening to me too.
I only got 3 minutes.
You didn't, you got 5.
Well, it only got 3, and she said she was leaving. She's done, so we didn't.
Oh, okay, well, you would have had 5.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I had already told,
As fast as I could.
well, I had already told her to add an additional 2 minutes, but you quit about the time it ran out, so. But you would have had 5. And you want your other 2, you can come back.
Thank you, but I appreciate you addressing the fact that I didn't get your opinion.
Right, well, I addressed it while you were speaking. I turned to her and told her to put you an additional 2 minutes there. We can't do it till it runs down, so, okay.
Well, you guys are already less, that's fine.
I understand. You're perfectly welcome to come back if you'd like 2 more minutes. All right. Any board member have a question or a statement, comment they'd like to make? Let's start with Ms. Lewis.
So, Superintendent White, so just for clarification, as far as Linwood goes, the RSD will directly run Linwood for next year. So does that mean we're putting out a request for operators for the 2018 year? Or like I guess I'm just trying to understand what this state-run option really means.
Well, I think we're working with the Caddo board on what kind of request would exist for 2018. There will have to be a request for 2018. We haven't determined what it will entail at this time. But for 2017, 2018, the one remaining option right now, barring any other better ideas, which we're certainly open to as things go along, but barring any better ideas, for now the state will run it with the idea to find an operator for 2017-18.
Yes, sir, Mr. Garvey.
Yes, a question for the superintendent regarding Fair Park. The reconfiguration that is being planned for Fair Park is, let me back up. Fair Park is being operated right now under an MOU with the Department of Education. Is that right?
It is part of an MOU between the Caddo Parish Board and the Department of Education.
Okay. Does the MOU address the grade configuration and any changes to the grade configuration?
It alludes to the need for Caddo Parish to seek approval from the state for grade configurations. However, that agreement expires in May. And as I understand it, the agreement or the transfer of the grades at Fair Park is to take place for next school year.
And when the MOU expires, is the school still eligible to be taken over by the RSD, or?
It is.
So you're expecting to have another MOU in place to replace the one that expires?
That's what we're working on at present, yes.
And the one that will replace it, will it have provisions regarding grade configuration and changing grade configurations?
It might. I think the one thing I would disagree perhaps slightly with some of the comments on is that this is an MOU that has district-wide ambitions. And this district suffers from a crisis of how it allocates its resources. Largely, the schools that are the most troubled, which I would say are the predominantly low-income, non-magnet high schools in Caddo Parish, are beset by constant turnover of principals, out-of-license area teachers, long-term vacancies, and long-term substitutes. And this is, in the community meetings that Superintendent Dobard, Mr. Davis, and I did, this is a resounding theme. At the same time, there are schools where there are higher salaries, stable employment, and in other parts of town. And I will say that the superintendent, I believe, is trying to address some of the inefficiencies in the way the system allocates resources in order that he can put savings from those efficiencies right back into some of these more troubled schools. And I think that's necessitating him raising some hard decisions. And I believe that Ms. Bonds is bringing to us today a decision that the board in Caddo has tried to make to try to get some efficiencies so that they can reinvest funds in low-income schools. That's a local issue. That's a local issue. Now, it becomes a state issue when Ms. Bonds raises the question of should you take over the school. She's right. You could elect right now to take over that school. And in doing that, she's right. You could prevent them from doing a grade configuration. I don't believe the Recovery School District was created so that BESE can prevent local grade configurations. I believe the Recovery School District was created so as to transform learning environments for kids who are struggling in schools that are struggling. And if there's a way of the local school board doing that at a greater scale, greater immediacy than the Recovery School District, then I think that's worth looking at. So I am bringing you this report as a reflection that the local superintendent, in coordination with my staff, is trying to get to a point where they, at great scale, make great investment in struggling schools themselves, which I believe is going to be a more efficient and immediate means of doing it than the RSD. But she's right. If you wanted a recommendation from me to take over the school so as to prevent a grade configuration, she's right, but that is within the law.
Thank you.
Any other board members, Ms. Bochay?
I just have a question, I guess, with the fine nuances of how this developed, and maybe you can explain it to us so I can understand it a little bit better. These schools obviously were eligible for takeover by the Recovery School District, but you're saying that past BESE boards maybe did not exercise that, I guess, option to take them over, but just directed you to enter into an MOU with the Caddo Parish School Board to do whatever it takes to help these schools progress. Is that correct?
It is correct, other than that I don't believe we had BESE direction. Under the law, the Recovery School District just entered into that.
Okay,
Just
so
entered
the
into that
Recovery
rule.
School
Yes,
District
yeah.
and the department entered, the Recovery School District and the local school board entered into the MOU.
That's right.
And prior to any takeover, however, Linwood is part of the Recovery School District. Is that correct or not?
From 8 years ago, yes.
From 8
Yeah,
years
yeah.
ago. So that's a separate situation
Totally
than the
separate issue,
other
yeah.
than the other schools. Now, the MOU, as Mr. Garvey, I guess, was asking, the MOU that we have with the Caddo school system does not address any school configurations or any of that.
It requires them, for schools that are covered in the MOU, to seek an amendment to the MOU, essentially. So it requires
they're gonna
approval of the RSD. Yeah.
So you're making the distinction that the local school board took the action to be effective after the MOU expired, even though they took it during the MOU.
Well, here's what I would say. I think now you're getting into, you're getting into, the board took an act, the Caddo board took an action during the period of the MOU to take effect after the period of the MOU. I mean, I think we're in a point of legal gray space that an MOU really won't endure.
Well, I'm really not that set on that. I guess what I'm trying to find out is, in your discussions, you made a statement or in your presentation that in the next few days you think that this new MOU will be resolved or that there will be an agreement. Is that what you're saying?
I think from the drafts that I've seen, I think we are getting very close, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Now, I'm sorry.
What does that entail for us? Does that mean you have to bring that back to us? But I guess not. The department just negotiates the MOU with the school
The RSD does. I mean, but the reason it is coming to you and you're getting all these letters is that if you intervened and said, no MOU, we want to take over that school, then Caddo's decision-making authority to reconfigure the school would be removed. I'm saying to you that as a matter of improving student learning at great scale, I believe that insofar as our negotiations are proceeding in a good direction, Caddo is in a better position to improve student learning at great scale on an immediate pace than is the state from 200 miles away, only having one school at present in Caddo Parish. Now, you can disagree with me on that, obviously. You could also take the perspective, we just want to save the Fair Park grade configuration. And those two would be reasons for you to say, no, we want to intervene. My view is at this point better to keep the negotiations with Superintendent Goree proceeding.
Yeah, and how many schools are we talking about that will be under this MOU?
Well, there are 4 that really have to be. I mean, because there's a decision pending from the state. But, under ESSA, there are a lot of schools in Caddo Parish. And so what the superintendent and my staff are working on is a kind of combination of looking at both RSD eligible and ESSA eligible schools, which puts it upwards of a dozen.
Have I missed anyone in terms of someone who would like to speak or ask a question?
Just as we close, I just want to say that we've had some very good discussions on this, and I've been very involved with both the state staff here and also working with the local group, and I'm very confident in the direction that we're moving with this. I'm excited. I know we can hopefully get to the end of this very soon, and it is a bit of a weird situation in that we're having this much information on something that's really not going to be a BESE vote ultimately, but I do think that having local origin and control of this issue moving forward is very important.
All right. Any other board members want to make a comment or ask a question? Hearing no further discussion, is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries.
That concludes your agenda. The next meeting will start in 10 minutes at 120.